Okay, let's unpack this. Think about something you interact with multiple times a day, maybe without even really thinking about it. Plastic containers,
Hmm,
your morning yogurt, shampoo bottle, maybe even the motor oil in the garage. They are genuinely everywhere.
absolutely.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into the global plastic container market. Our mission really is to show you the surprising scale of this industry.
Yeah.
We want to unpack the forecast, looking ahead to 2033, and really understand what's driving this huge, often kind of invisible growth.
Right.
We've got some numbers that might make you rethink just how fundamental this stuff is to our daily lives and, why its growth tells such an interesting story about consumption. These containers are just incredibly versatile. You see them across industries like food and beverages, pharmaceuticals, personal care, household goods,
Here,
even heavy-duty industrial products. Their use is so widespread, they're almost like a foundation of modern commerce.
and what's really key here, I think, is understanding why they hold such a dominant spot.
Yeah.
It's not by accident. Their core attributes are just really compelling. They're remarkably lightweight, impressively durable, and often, the most cost-effective way to package something.
Makes sense.
And that translates into real benefits like convenience, portability for you, the consumer, and crucially for manufacturers, the ability to extend product shelf life. That cuts waste, maximizes reach.
Mm-hmm.
So when you connect that to the bigger picture, it's these practical things, plus, growing consumer demand for ready-to-use safe products,
Right.
and also that increasing focus on recyclability. That's what's fueling the steady market growth we're seeing globally.
And when we talk growth, I mean, the figures really do grab your attention. The global market was already worth a staggering $58.391 billion back in 2021.
Yeah.
Just, let that sink in for a second. $58 billion.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. This market isn't just big, it's clearly heading upwards.
Right.
It's projected to hit $71.21 billion by 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And then really climb to an impressive $105.999 billion by 2033.
Right.
So this steady expansion, it works out to a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 5.087% during this forecast period.
Okay.
That's not just, a blip. It's robust, sustained expansion in what's really a foundational industry.
So what does this kind of growth, nearly $50 billion in expansion, what does it mean for you?
Well, this scale, it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
No, definitely not.
It has a profound impact on global supply chains. It influences the types, the availability of countless consumer products you see on the shelves,
Mm-hmm.
and it ripples through global economics. It really just highlights how deeply plastic containers are woven into almost every part of our daily consumption. Okay, so we've got the global scale established. But like any huge market, the details matter, right? Especially when we look at regional powerhouses and their own dynamics. Let's start with North America.
Okay.
This region is a huge contributor. Its plastic container market generated $23.298 billion in 2021.
Yeah.
And it's projected to grow to a massive $40.7775 billion by 2033. And this robust growth in North America is, well, it's particularly interesting because it's already, we'd call a mature market.
Right. It's not like it's just starting out.
Exactly. This isn't some developing region just now adopting packaged goods.
Right.
So what it suggests, I think, is that even in these established economies, those underlying drivers we talked about, convenience, safety, shelf life,
Yeah.
they continue to outweigh other factors, driving innovation and expansion within existing plastic solutions. It really speaks to a deep, sustained consumer reliance.
Absolutely. And if we dive a bit deeper into North America, the United States, $18.813 billion in 2021, heading towards $32.282 billion by 2033.
The big numbers.
Canada saw revenues of $2.87 billion in 2021, set to rise to $5.472 billion by 2033. And Mexico, $1.615 billion in 2021, projected to reach $3.021 billion by 2033.
So the story across the whole continent is pretty clear.
Uh-huh.
Strong, continued demand.
Right. So from North America's mature but still growing landscape, let's shift our focus over to Europe. Now, it's a major market too. $16.875 billion in 2021, projected to hit $29.443 billion by 2033. But what's particularly interesting here, I think, is the diversity in the story across its different economies.
Indeed. Europe gives us this kind of fascinating mosaic of growth. You've got Germany and France, for instance, sort of leading the pack,
Yeah.
both projected to hit around $4.5 billion by 2033. That signals strong, continued demand in those major economies.
Right.
But it's not just the big players. countries like Russia are also showing pretty substantial growth,
Yeah.
which reflects, shifts in consumer habits there.
And you really see that widespread demand when you look closer. Germany, for example, $2.771 billion in 2021, growing to $4.525 billion by 2033.
Hmm.
France is right there with it, $2.371 billion in 2021, forecast to hit $4.527 billion in 2033.
Almost identical.
Yeah. Russia grew from $2.243 billion in 21 to $3.701 billion in 33. The UK accounted for $1.821 billion, reaching $2.897 billion. Italy hit $1.3 billion, projected to reach $2.4 billion.
It keeps going.
It does. And this pattern extends to smaller economies, too. Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, even Luxembourg, they're all showing consistent increases. It just highlights how deeply integrated these containers are across the entire European economy.
Okay, now let's pivot to Asia Pacific. This is another real powerhouse, and it's showing some truly dynamic growth patterns.
Right.
Its plastic container market revenue was $10.977 billion in 2021, and the forecast. A dramatic surge to $22.22 billion by 2033.
And the unique dynamics in APAC, they really stand out, especially, I'd say, India's rapid expansion. This often reflects things like a quickly rising middle class, more urbanization, and just a fundamental shift towards more packaged, ready-to-use goods as lifestyles change.
Yeah, convenience becoming key.
Exactly. It highlighted how essential plastic packaging becomes in developing consumer economies where, convenience and food safety are really paramount concerns.
Absolutely. And looking at the specific drivers there, China, no surprise, holds the largest share, $3.395 billion in 2021, increasing to $6.468 billion by 2033.
It's dominant.
Japan followed, $2.515 billion in 21, reaching $4.753 billion by 33. But like you said, India is the real standout here.
Yeah, the rapid growth tag. Truly rapid growth, rising from $1.782 billion in 2021 to a projected $4.011 billion in 2033. That's not just about population. It's a fundamental shift in how millions consume goods.
It really is.
And you've got other important markets, too, like South Korea, Australia, Singapore, the whole Southeast Asia collective market, Taiwan as well, all contributing to this really powerful regional growth story. Okay, finally, let's just briefly touch on the remaining regions, because the global reach of plastic containers is, well, it's undeniable.
It truly is everywhere.
In South America, the market was valued at $3.795 billion in 2021, projected to grow to $7.625 billion by 2033. Brazil and Argentina are key players there.
Right.
The Middle East saw $2.16 billion in 21, estimated to reach $3.431 billion in 33, with Saudi Arabia and Turkey leading.
Okay.
In Africa, the market stood at $1.285 billion in 2021, projected to hit $2.415 billion by 2033. South Africa and Nigeria showing significant growth there, too.
So consistent growth across all major continents tells a powerful story about, well, global consumption patterns.
Exactly. So to kind of recap our deep dive here, the global plastic container market is definitely an unseen giant, already valued in the tens of billions and projected to surge past $100 billion by 2033.
Yeah.
And the core drivers, they're undeniably powerful. Cost effectiveness, durability, convenience, and those perceived sustainability aspects like recyclability.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is that this dive isn't just about the huge numbers themselves.
Right.
It shows a market that's fundamentally woven into almost every single consumer good you encounter daily.
Yeah.
And it plays this critical, often really understated role in global supply chains. It's a testament to how essential these unassuming containers really are to modern commerce and consumer behavior, driving innovation in how products get protected, preserved, and delivered to you.
Right. So given these massive growth projections for plastic containers, I mean, literally across every continent, what does this tell us about the future of global consumption patterns and, the ongoing innovation within packaging solutions themselves?
That's the big question.
As this market keeps climbing towards that $100 billion mark, what might be the next big shift in how products are brought to you, packaged up, and ready for use?
Think about your day.
Yeah.
From the yogurt tub in your fridge, maybe the laundry detergent bottle. Plastic containers are just absolutely everywhere. We barely give them a second thought, right? But behind each one, there's this incredibly complex, multi-billion-dollar industry. Have you ever stopped to consider what truly drives all this packaging? Or maybe the huge challenges it's facing right now?
It's pretty fascinating when you dig in.
Well, today, that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to peel back those layers of the plastic containers market. We've gathered insights specifically from a market report called Plastic Containers, Growth, Challenges, and Future Trends.
Right.
And we're going to explore its, well, surprising expansion, the mounting pressures, and what the future might hold the innovation side.
Yeah, there's a lot happening there.
By the end of this, you'll have a shortcut, really, to understanding an industry that shapes how so many everyday goods get to you
Mm-hmm.
and the forces that are, well, rapidly transforming it. Okay, let's unpack this then. When we think convenience, yeah, plastic containers often spring to mind. But beyond just making our lives easier, what are the real engines driving this massive growth?
Well, what's fascinating here is how much of it really comes down to dynamic shifts in consumer behavior.
Sure.
We're seeing just a huge surge in packaged goods consumption, across FMCG, food and beverage, personal care.
Right, the everyday stuff.
Exactly. And it's closely linked to, well, growing urban populations, busier lifestyles. People want ready-to-eat meals, drinks on the go, more cosmetic products.
Yeah, grab-and-go culture.
Precisely. Think about those single-serve juice bottles, or maybe shampoo containers made of PET or HDPE. They're staples now. Supermarkets, online retail.
Oh.
And actually, for e-commerce, plastic's lightweight and tamper-proof nature is kind of ideal for logistics. It helps prevent leakage or breakage when things are shipped right to your door.
That makes a lot of sense. So convenience for us, the consumers, is a big driver. But are there other major forces pushing this demand beyond just everyday ease?
Oh, absolutely. There's the whole pharmaceutical and healthcare packaging side. That's significant, especially, post-COVID-19. And with global healthcare access generally rising, plastic bottles, jars, vials, they're used everywhere.
For what sort of things specifically?
Well, everything from syrups and capsules to ointments, even diagnostic kits. Their chemical resistance, the moisture barrier properties, the ability to maintain sterility, that's all crucial.
Okay.
For instance, HT containers are really common for antacids and tablets. That's because they have an excellent moisture barrier, protects the contents.
Right, stops them getting damp.
Exactly. And then you have polypropylene-based bottles, maybe for over-the-counter meds or nutritional supplements. They resist chemicals well, can handle higher temperatures for sterilization.
Mm-hmm.
And this demand is pushed further by, aging populations needing more health care, and also the need for safe, portable packaging for remote or mobile medical setups.
So convenience for us, critical for health.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the business side? The bottom line for manufacturers? What makes plastic so attractive for them?
Yeah, this is where cost efficiency and scalability really stand out as powerful drivers.
Okay.
I mean, compared to glass or metal, plastic is generally just cheaper to produce, it's lighter to ship, which is huge for transport costs, and it's far less likely to break.
Fewer losses in transit.
Right. And this cost efficiency, it's not just small savings. It really changes the game. It enables these global distribution models, makes products accessible in markets where maybe heavier or more fragile packaging would be logistically impossible or just too expensive.
Yeah.
It's how, a simple plastic tub for cooking oil or detergent can actually help economic inclusion in rural areas. It supports both affordability and basic function.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
How deep the roots of something so common run, connecting right into our economy, our daily habits.
Yeah, it's woven in deep.
It does sound like a runaway success story, though. But I imagine this industry must face some pretty significant headwinds, too, right? Can't all be easy.
Oh, absolutely not. The foremost challenge really is environmental regulations and, increasingly, plastic bans.
Yeah, you hear a lot about that.
Definitely. Countries all over Europe, Asia, North America, they're tightening restrictions, especially on single-use plastics. They're introducing penalties, taxes,
So hitting the bottom line.
directly impacting manufacturers. Yeah. It compels them to adopt alternatives like biodegradable or recyclable materials. But that often means higher production costs, maybe needing new machinery, big investments.
Right.
And beyond the costs, there are big reputational risks for companies that don't adapt, particularly with environmentally conscious consumers who are now actively looking to avoid stuff that's overpackaged or can't be recycled.
So public perception, government policy,
Yeah.
they're forcing big changes.
Mm-hmm.
What other kinds of pressures are manufacturers feeling?
Another really significant pressure is the volatility of raw material prices.
The inputs.
Exactly. Plastic containers depend heavily on petroleum-based resins, things like peat, HDPE, polypropylene.
Right. Derived from oil.
So, when crude oil prices fluctuate, or there are geopolitical tensions, or maybe refinery shutdowns like we saw during the pandemic that can really disrupt supply chains, it leads to unpredictable pricing.
Squeezing margins.
Absolutely. For the global giants and the smaller players, too. But the smaller manufacturers often really struggle to absorb those sudden cost swings.
This brings up a key question, though. If plastics are, theoretically recyclable, why is it still such a huge environmental problem?
That's a really critical point, and mostly it boils down to underdeveloped recycling infrastructure in many, many parts of the world.
So we can recycle it, but we often don't.
Pretty much. Despite the theoretical recyclability, you have low collection rates, big problems with contamination like food waste in containers, and just the complexity of sorting all the different types of plastic resins.
Okay.
It means a large proportion, unfortunately, still ends up in landfills, or worse, in rivers and oceans. And in many developing nations, there just isn't an organized recycling network. That really hampers any kind of circular economy model and, understandably, fuels public backlash against plastic.
Right.
So brands, they're under more and more pressure to innovate, either with genuinely sustainable designs or sometimes switching to different materials entirely.
So, okay, it's clear the industry faces these huge pressures.
Yeah.
But that kind of pressure, it often sparks innovation, right?
Right.
What are the key trends you're seeing that are shaping the future of plastic containers?
Well, leading the way is a really significant shift towards recyclable and bio-based materials.
Okay, tell me more about those.
So we're seeing more use of things like post-consumer recycled content, that's PCR. It's plastic made from stuff that's already been used and recycled.
Right, closing the loop.
Exactly. And then there are newer bioplastics like PLA or PHA. These are derived from renewable sources, think cornstarch or vegetable oil. They offer more sustainable alternatives. And these materials are gaining serious traction, especially in areas like cosmetics, health foods, premium wellness products, places where sustainability is a really strong selling point for consumers.
People are willing to pay for it there.
They often are. And you see major global brands like Unilever, Coca-Cola making these big pledges, like making all their packaging recyclable or reusable by 2030.
That's ambitious.
It is, and it really pushes their packaging suppliers towards eco-conscious innovations. Things like monomaterial bottles, which are easier to recycle, or even compostable containers.
That's a huge shift in the actual materials, and it seems like consumer demand is really driving that push. What else is changing? Maybe in how the containers look or feel.
Yeah, another powerful trend is customization and branding in packaging. It's become a vital tool for, consumer engagement.
For making it stand out.
Precisely. Companies are investing in things like ergonomically shaped bottles, maybe embossed logos, color-coded caps, tamper-evident seals, anything to differentiate themselves on crowded shelves. You see this especially in personal care, gourmet foods, fitness nutrition, areas where the look and feel, the user experience, it's really closely tied to the brand's identity.
Can you give an example?
Sure, think about like protein powder tubs that have a scoop built into the lid, or pump dispensers for lotions that make them easier to use. It improves convenience, sure, but it also builds brand loyalty.
So it's not just about being green, but also about that whole brand experience. Okay, and one more thing, the rise of online shopping. How's that changing container design?
Oh, e-commerce is definitely reshaping priorities. Big time.
How so?
Well, plastic containers now absolutely need to be impact-resistant, leak-proof, and still lightweight to survive that last-mile delivery, which can be pretty rough.
Right, getting dropped on the doorstep.
Exactly. So as more of us shop online for everything, household cleaners, vitamins, toiletries, brands are shifting towards more compact, stackable designs.
For shipping efficiency.
Yeah, optimizes shipping, saves space, but still keeps the product safe inside. And there's even exploration now into low-carbon packaging formats. Things designed to reduce transportation emissions, maybe qualify for ESG incentives.
Stepping back then, looking at the bigger picture, it's really clear this industry is in a constant state of flux, constant evolution, driven by so many different forces.
Absolutely. It's incredibly dynamic.
So let's try and sum this up. What does this all mean? From convenience to healthcare, cost efficiency to this environmental reckoning. The world of plastic containers is, well, incredibly dynamic. It's still a cornerstone of modern packaging, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
But it's constantly balancing those advantages, its undeniable usefulness, with this urgent need for transformation.
Yeah, and the inherent adaptability of plastic itself as a material, combined with all this technological evolution happening in the sector, it really ensures it's going to continue playing a vital role across many industries.
So for you, our listener, maybe the next time you pick up a packaged good, Perhaps you'll see it not just as a simple container, but as this fascinating intersection. Consumer trends, environmental pressures, cutting-edge innovation, all in that one object.
And perhaps that might spark a thought about something else too, the competitive landscape. How major players, companies like Plastipac, Sunoco, AMC, or Berry Global, Silgan Holdings, how they're leveraging advanced digital tools.
Like what kind of tools?
Things like AI for quality monitoring on production lines, or IoT sensors for tracking shipments, even cloud-based systems for managing inventory, all to streamline operations, improve traceability, and push that efficiency and sustainability angle even further. What might that relentless optimization mean for the future of your everyday packaging experience?